The stickman starts the day excitedly, walking down the street with his mug of steaming coffee. He smiles, takes a deep breath, and feels that that little ritual is what gives him the energy to face the routine. Everything seems normal until, suddenly, a giant luminous poster appears before him, flashing in flashy letters. Stop drinking coffee and get rich. Element, he freezes, widens his eyes, and almost drops the mug. The message seems magical, like a promise of a secret shortcut to change your life. Curious and impressed, the stickman looks at the coffee in his hands. At first he hesitates, but soon throws the mug in the trash, convinced that that simple sacrifice will be the key to his fortune. Almost instantly, his imagination soars. He finds himself inside a huge mansion, walking through golden corridors surrounded by expensive paintings and luxurious furniture. He then appears driving a red sports car, cutting seaside roads. Then he is on a paradisiacal beach, lying on a chair, sipping a colorful juice while watching the blue sea. The smile on his face is wide, his eyes shine, and for a moment he truly believes that he has found the answer to all his problems. But the fantasy doesn't last. The images begin to tremble as if they were a soap bubble about to burst. In one snap, everything disappears. The stickman opens his eyes and returns to the harsh reality. He is sitting on a park bench, alone, without coffee in his hands, and with the same empty wallet as always. He opens his wallet, looks inside, and finds only a few loose coins. The silence around contrasts with the dreams that have just been shattered. He lowers his head, realizing that he hasn't gotten rich, he just ran out of coffee. The stickman, determined to take the promise of wealth by cutting coffee seriously, sits at his desk with paper, pencil, and a calculator. He begins to note enthusiastically, "Real 5 a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks in the month, ... Your eyes sparkle as the numbers grow on paper. He begins to imagine that, in a short time, he will be surrounded by bills flying through the air, as if each cup not taken was one more brick in the construction of his fortune. The enthusiasm increases with each calculation, and he even laughs to himself, believing that he is finally on the right track. When he finishes the month's bill, he breathes in satisfaction, but soon decides to project the result for an entire year. The expectation grows. He leans forward, almost without breathing, and does the final multiplication. The number appears before him. His eyes widen. He expected a fortune, but the value is no more than a few hundred. The smile freezes, the pencil slips from his hand and falls on the paper. He tries to cheer himself up, imagining that maybe with 10 years without coffee, everything would change. But even so, the sum is disappointing. The scene cuts to his desk covered in bills, rent bills, electricity, water, credit card. He spreads his hands over them as if trying to cover the inevitable. The money he would save with coffee would not even be enough to pay a card bill. The initial excitement turns into quiet frustration. He looks at the empty cup in the corner of the table, sighs deeply, and realizes that even though he has done all those maths, nothing has changed. Suddenly, the stickman realizes that he is no longer alone. Out of nowhere, a crowd of caricatured figures begins to emerge around him. Men in colorful suits, women holding microphones, all with huge badges written Gura. They gesticulate in an exaggerated way, point their fingers in his face, and repeat, in chorus, strident phrases. Every coffee is a destroyed future. Every sip is a retirement that you throw away. Your drinking failure, Element. The stickman widens his eyes, confused, takes a few steps back, but the further back he goes, the more they move forward. He puts his hands to his ears, trying to block out the noise, but the voices echo like an inescapable mantra. The pressure is increasing. The stickman looks at his cup of coffee, holding tightly, as if it were his last precious possession, the only little bit of joy that was left in the midst of that confusion. But the gurus are insistent. They surround you on all sides, make dramatic gestures, shake false graphs with red lines rising, as if coffee were the real root of human misery. In a sudden movement, one of the gurus snatches the mug from the stickman's hands. He tries to resist, but the others join in, and, together, throw the coffee in the trash with a theatrical gesture as if they had saved his life. The stickman stands there, staring at the dumpster, incredulous, feeling like he's missed more than one drink. He's lost his little daily pleasure. All around, the gurus celebrate as if they had made a great revolution. The stickman takes a deep breath, looks at the imaginary camera, and gives a heavy sigh. Is this miraculous advice really worth creating? If you also want to continue following this journey and discover the truth behind these financial myths, subscribe to the channel right now and don't miss the next chapters. The stickman sits in front of the computer, determined to prove that all the effort was worth it. It opens a colorful spreadsheet full of columns and graphs. With a determined air, he begins to enter the values: zero coffee, zero spending, total savings. As he types, a smile begins to form on his face, as if he is about to see the beginning of a major financial turnaround. He adjusts his imaginary glasses, snaps his fingers, and presses the Enter key confidently. For a few seconds, the screen flashes, processing the calculations. The stickman leans forward, anxious. Suddenly, a huge message appears in the center of the screen. In red letters, balance, almost nothing. The smile disappears immediately. He blinks several times, presses the refresh button, checks if he hasn't typed anything wrong. But the result insists. On appearing cold and relentless, nothing has changed. He looks to the side and sees his empty table where there was once a steaming cup. Now there is no coffee, no pleasure, and even worse, no extra money. The stickman rests his head on his hands, lets out a deep sigh, and feels the weight of disappointment fall on him. The promise of wealth evaporated, leaving only silence and frustration. He faces the screen once again, as if he doesn't want to believe it, but already knows the truth. The sacrifice brought nothing but emptiness. And you, have you ever fallen into this trap of thinking that cutting out a small pleasure would solve your financial life? Tell us your experience in the comments. I'd love to know if you've also done this test in practice. The stickman, after weeks without coffee, decides to open his credit card bill in hopes of seeing relief. He sits back in his chair, takes a deep breath, and thinks, "Now I'm going to notice the difference. The sacrifice was worth it." With an optimistic smile, he clicks to open the file. The screen loads slowly, creating suspense. He rubs his hands, imagining a much smaller number than usual. But as soon as the invoice appears, his eyes widen, the smile disappears. Instead of relief, he sees pages and pages full of charges that he didn't even remember existing. Old streaming subscriptions that you never canceled, useless apps charging a monthly fee, hidden bank fees, and, to make matters worse, very high interest accrued from installment purchases. Each line of the invoice looks like a new stab. He tries to scroll down, but the list never ends, like an endless nightmare. The stickman puts his hands to his head, desperate, and in an exaggerated gesture falls off his chair, shocked by the revelation. The scene freezes for an instant. The economics of coffee are minimal, almost invisible, in the face of the real monster that devours your money every month. Coffee was never the problem. The chains that really binds him are much greater interest, debt, tariffs, and oversights that he ignored while believing coffee was the villain. He slowly stands up, looks at the screen once more, and sighs deeply, realizing that he cut the wrong pleasure. The days go by, and the stickman remains firm in his wealth strategy. No coffee. Each morning, he looks at the coffee maker turned off and tries to convince himself that abstinence is an investment in the future. But the routine begins to weigh on him. At work, he yawns nonstop, looks at his colleagues drinking coffee, and feels a mixture of envy and regret. He repeats to himself, "It's worth it, it's worth it. Soon everything will change." But deep down, he knows that nothing has changed so far. The weeks pile up. He waits anxiously for the moment when the money will finally appear, but his bank account remains stagnant. The calendar on the wall is marked with red Z's, each representing another day without coffee and another day without a result. The stickman begins to walk more slowly, his eyes become heavy, and the energy he once had disappears. One night, exhausted, he approaches the bathroom mirror. He finds a haggard face, deep dark circles under his eyes, and a blank expression. He touches his own reflection with sadness, as if he no longer recognizes the person he sees. The stickman understands that he sacrificed something that gave him pleasure, but he gained nothing in return. Neither money, nor wealth, nor freedom. Just tiredness, frustration, and a growing emptiness. Deep down, the truth is clear and painful. He ran out of coffee, without pleasure, and without money. The stickman is standing in front of a symbolic scene. To his left rests a steaming cup of coffee, the aroma almost palpable, inviting him to a simple moment of pleasure. To his right, an empty, dull, weightless piggy bank with a small crack that reveals how fragile he is. He looks at one, then at the other. He frowns, scratches his head, and begins to think about all the effort he has made. Weeks without coffee, sleepless nights, mornings without energy. All this for what? To stand in front of a piggy bank that holds nothing but frustration. He takes a deep breath, stares at the piggy bank, and after a few seconds, shrugs as if to say, "It's not worth it." With a decisive gesture, he turns to the other side, holds the cup with both hands, and feels the heat pass through his fingers. The stickman closes his eyes, takes a long sip, and opens a wide smile, the first in a long time. It's as if I've finally recovered something that really matters. As he walks away, he leaves behind the empty piggy bank, a symbol of a useless sacrifice. He moves on, lighter, aware that it will not be by denying small pleasures that he will achieve a better life, but by learning to deal with what really weighs on his pocket. The imaginary camera follows him as he disappears over the horizon, cup in hand, and the feeling of freedom back. And you, do you want to discover other financial myths that only hook you without leading anywhere? Then click now on the video that is playing on the screen and continue this journey with me.